Hello, my name is Erica Ortiz, and I am a student at the University of Laverne. For this first response, I'll probably record it in English and use my one freebie for this, since it's a little bit easier to articulate all of the information that I've read so far. But I do speak Spanish. Si hablo español, fue mi primer lenguaje. So for my background, I am a first generation Latina. I'd consider myself Latina. But after reading these articles, I probably would consider myself being more Mexican American, probably. Although I might change that after I go into the articles. So summarizing briefly what the three articles that I've read so far. So the first article kind of talked about like what identity was about and how identity came about and how these labels, Hispanic and what it meant to be a Hispanic, all the way from the colonial times. So having my background, I have my bachelor's in English. I do remember all of the Puritan movements and the colonial times of the United States when it was just becoming the United States. In the second article, it mostly articulated how we identify identity, what constitutes identity. And it did remind me a lot of how, how identity is not a fixed thing, it's very fluid. It's something that can change over time, versus, say, someone's character, right? Someone's character usually is pretty, or uniqueness is pretty set. It's something that does not waver that much. And lastly, in the third article, mostly summarized, I feel it was more of a data article where it kind of gave us different percentages of what encompasses the Hispanic, or the government termed Hispanic, and what that encompasses and what the percentages of Mexican, of Salvadorians, people of Latin America. And the last article from Harvard, that one actually did speak to me a lot and kind of really solidified a lot of the things that I was not aware of. I do recall, of course, growing up, obviously hasn't been that long, but my parents were undocumented immigrants who came to the United States for a better future. I have visited Mexico for a couple times, I would say about 3 times, and the differences are pretty huge. But more importantly, how this ties into the articles and what was being read was, so far it gave me pretty much the contextual evidence of data and also what has happened over the years from the 1900s to present time. Something that my parents actually weren't able to give to me. Since my parents both were born in the year 1969, a lot of the things that were covered in the third article of how immigration, how it first started with, the Mexican-American War, and how that division created a divide within the own Mexican people and the Americans, and then how the Puerto Ricans and the Mexicans both kind of shared the same inequities from the majority of America, so the white Americans here, and the struggles that they had to go through, and also really embedded pretty much all of the organizations, from Mecha to what it used to be, and also like the political part, like Nixon. I feel like that was totally a political play just to get more votes, but that's just my opinion. But it did give me a lot of background now of certain things that my parents kind of had to go through, and also kind of similar things that I had to go through as well. But more importantly, I think, from what I've learned so far is mostly how things have changed politically and how much things haven't actually changed. I feel that people are you know, kind of using these terms and not understanding the depth of it. I remember one time someone asked me, you know, oh, you're Hispanic. And to me, it just didn't sound right. It felt kind of almost as if I was like being racially profiled. And I do remember when I was, I think in the year 2018, I was very curious about like my nationality and my origin, and I thought that I was 100% like Mexican. And when I did this like DNA sample, it turned out that I actually was not that much, you know, Mexican as I thought. I was mostly Iberian, so from, you know, the Spanish Peninsula, and I had about like 35% like Mexican, and the rest was like indigenous Native American. So having that kind of blew my mind a lot. Um, so just kind of referring it back to the articles, I do feel how these like misnomers can kind of, you know, give kind of give you some uncertainty and some feelings of how these terms are used. But it's really great to have read the historical context, and now I feel like I have a little bit more information to understand my background, since my parents kind of walked in right around the time where, you know, what was it, 1960s, so that was, you know, when after Nixon, you know, and after they have been promising that's after like Telemundo started to broadcast things in Spanish. So I feel like my parents came in, you know, with certain amenities, of course, but still a lot of things stacked against them. So just to keep this video brief, it was a lot of information. I'm thoroughly grateful for having read all of this, and I'm very excited for the upcoming lectures. Thank you.